Hello and welcome to the Rhythm Changes podcast. I'm your host, Will Chernoff. This is episode 100. Thank you so much. This is so cool. If you want to continue to support Rhythm Changes, subscribe now at rhythmchanges.ca. The support of the subscribers and everybody who has given their attention to this project over the years means so much to me. None of it would be possible without you. Thank you. Let's get into it. All right. I don't know what else to say. I mean, this has been a long time coming. This guest has known that he and I would talk for episode 100 for a long time. It's something that I've been looking forward to for a long time, and it's finally here. So I'm overjoyed. One other thing I will say is the next time you'll hear from me after this episode will be an announcement about the future of this podcast. So stay tuned for that. But for now, let's go. Episode 100 up next. Our guest today is a photographer, a fan, a friendly face, a person who I've had many a fun conversation with at a gig. Whenever I see him at Frankie's, at Tyrant, at anywhere else, it always brings a smile to my face because I know he's there to have a good time. I know he's going to come out of it with some great photos. And he goes to hear a lot more music than I do and than pretty much anybody else does. So for episode 100, I couldn't think of somebody better to talk about all that and more. Please welcome to the Rhythm Changes podcast, Sapalo Shafooli.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Will.
We made it. We are here.
Yes, thank you for inviting me for episode 100. Yeah. I kind of feel a bit, how to say, bit of an odd duck in the guest list, but no, I was listening to Tim Reinert's episode actually yesterday, and something that stuck out. Your intro in that episode was it's an ongoing conversation on people who make the scene. What is it? Prosperous or
the intro read, the actual, not when I went live with him.
No, yeah. And I was like, okay, I guess that makes sense why I was invited. Yeah.
Can I bring myself back? What the heck did I even say? Oh, I know what I said.
Yeah.
Because I think we'll talk about a lot of like meta Rhythm Changes stuff here because you've been such a big booster of Rhythm Changes, a podcast listener. You've given me a lot of love and support, which I appreciate. So there's all kinds of, this is an occasion where that kind of stuff can be discussed.
Yeah.
There is like a one-liner like mission statement or motto statement of Rhythm Changes. And currently it's to make it more fun and easier to participate in the scene. That's the current one. But the first version of it that I came up with was to make the scene more fun. And so that part was the same, more fun and prosperous. So I think that's what I was reading in my intro lines. Because that Tim Reinert episode, I mean, I always like to say, the funniest thing about that episode is that we did it before he ever presented a single show. Because we didn't talk about presenting shows at all, right?
I forgot. Yeah, I forgot about that.
But yeah, it was in the early days.
That's
2021 was the first year of the show. It was like in the first 20. Can't remember the number, but it was in the first 20 episodes. I'm very certain of that. So fun and prosperous.
It was number 19 actually.
19. Yeah. Oh, so it wasn't the first 20. Look at that. Because right after that, I started doing in-persons. Because when I did that one, I had actually never done it in person.
Oh yeah. That was like on a phone or.
We did them all on like Zoom calls, or there was another app, Riverside.fm, that I used. So I would use video calls. I wouldn't keep the video. And then there was like no editing or mixing that would happen because it would just spit out like a mixed down audio file. It already is what it is. I don't get to like multi-track edit or anything like that. So that was fun times. Yeah, I didn't know anything about podcasting. Yeah, that was right about 3 years ago exactly. Yeah, so. That's funny that you tuned into that one on the way into this conversation.
Yeah, and then afterwards I finished up the friendship.
It just happened with Jenny. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, because I started it and then it's hard for me to go through episodes in one shot, so it's good to come back to. And
yeah. That's the nice thing about the podcast format is that it's easy to just leave it and then come back and press play and you're back where you left off, right?
That's right.
It's easier than most other mediums to do that with, so it's okay if they go long. In my opinion, I don't get worried about it because of that reason, right? Karen Plato actually says the same thing.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, it took me a few days to get through it. But I'm like, no problem.
She hasn't been on yet, has she?
You know what?
Yeah.
That's a funny. So no is the answer. But the reason why I find that funny is
Yeah.
because she actually has, because she kind of co-produced the Kate Hammett Vaughn.
That's right.
Episode,
That's right.
You could actually hear her voice.
I remember.
a
Yes,
couple of times.
I remember you
in that
you
one.
telling me about the behind the scenes on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Very
And
grateful for that.
I really enjoyed that episode as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so you just mentioned Jenny Zhu's trio though.
Mm-hmm.
You popped in there, right? A little bit at their Tyrant
I did.
show. Did you also hear them at Frankie's?
I did.
Okay, I missed the Frankie's one.
I popped in. I mean, on both of those instances, I came in. I think the second set.
Yeah.
And I managed to catch some tunes. It was cool to see them. Well, I wanted to catch both of them because the Friday show at Frankie's was electric instruments. So I wanted to, catch the differences. Kind of like how Rush Hour, Faven and Gordy, they did one night at Tyrant with acoustic instruments and then electric in that second night. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah,
Yeah.
they did a similar thing. Yeah. Have you listened to Faven's episode yet?
I did.
Okay,
I did.
nice,
I did.
yeah.
Yeah. I listened to hers and Biboya's as well. Yeah. I've kind of been on a roll. Sometimes I come back to them and then there's a bit of a lull and then I'm like, oh, I really need to be listening to more episodes because it's really illuminating, especially people's journeys to where they are right now.
You might even say journeys to the bandstand.
Exactly.
We talked about that.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So it's also the other thing is, I mean, I know people mainly as musicians, but people are more than just, even though music can be, what they're all about, to hear about their teaching or to hear about their other endeavors is it's like, oh, okay, they are, you get a more complete picture because it's like when I show up at shows, everyone knows me as just, the guy who shows up in happy guy, takes photos and maybe posts them, but
post them whatever he feels like.
Yeah. I'm still working on that. That's a work in progress. But yeah. So it's just one facet of myself. So I'm kind of rambling, but
I know what you're saying. I appreciate it because you have an artistic skill that you are bringing to bear in the community. And that thing that you do, which is photography, and there have been videos that you've taken that you've captured from certain moments that have traveled far, and maybe we could talk about that too. But this visual artistic thing that you do in the community, you do that, and that that's 1% of me, Sapalo. When I think about myself, there's these 99 other things that I do, and yet you're known for this one thing. When you go about, you probably think about that, right? And musicians, they think about that too. And then you're saying, oh, I get to hear some of those other things, and not just the one that I hear when I actually go to the venue and I hear them.
It's right, because I'm not sure about you, but you probably noticed this, but sometimes I kind of resist being labeled as a photographer. I guess for a lot of reasons, imposter syndrome and what else could it be? Just I don't feel like I'm fully committed to that aspect because, when I go to shows, it's first and foremost to hear the music. There are a lot of shows where it's kind of hard for me to pull out my camera because I'm, too engrossed in what's taking place. And it can be hard for me to be in the moment, but also capture the moment. Sometimes I can do that. Sometimes it's very difficult. And other times I just let that wash away and I just try to do it. But it can be a challenge, especially when I'm thinking too much about am I in somebody's way? Am I being distracting with this big honking lens? Many times I wish I had, a smaller, more discreet option. Discreet or indiscreet? No, discreet.
You wish you were a little bit less conspicuous.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
could
that's
kind
what
of
I mean.
Fade
Yeah,
away
yeah,
and not.
yes.
You maybe are wondering if you are in somebody else's view or in somebody else's way,
Yeah.
and you're very consciously thinking like, well, for me, I'm coming here and I want a 100% view of the artist.
That's
so
right.
I don't want to stop anybody else from getting that, right?
Yes,
Is that kind of what it is?
That's right. Yeah, yeah. I do think about that maybe too much, because some people told me, man, sometimes you just gotta, you're just gonna be there for a couple seconds. It's not like you're camping out for the whole song or whole show. So, yeah.
I was thinking as you were just saying that this is reflected in your style a lot of the times, because I think your photography style is very candid, and it captures the personality of the artist in a certain way that I think reflects the way that you want this experience that you are seeking, that you want to have when you go to these shows, and it's the same thing that you wouldn't want to block somebody else's view of. The way that your work reflects that view, I think, is pretty. I mean, I'm not really visually artistically talented at all. Vez is, I'm not. That's one of our artistic kind of we cover two different areas there. I don't have that. I don't even really have an eye for that kind of thing. But I feel like even in your style there's a strong presence of something like that.
I think so. I mean, I think of myself as an emotional photographer. And what I mean by that is I'm really just responding to what I'm feeling, which, I mean, a lot of the times I go back from a show and I look at all these photos and I'm like, oh man, these are horrible. I'm like, you can throw those in the bin. There's never going to see the light of day. But a lot of my photos, it's the classic, eyes closed, usually eyes closed, and usually like in a moment of repose. I tend to like capturing those moments where there's kind of a rest and the musician is, maybe taking a moment to be inside themselves. And usually I try to capture smiles. I love capturing smiling faces. There are certain subjects of mine who I just keep coming back to because they give the best expressions. I mean, I'm sure there's you can name some. Teresa, Marie.
Yeah.
I mean, who else?
People who I think of who you photograph often. I mean, I was going to go around some of your favorite artists. Some of them would be outside the jazz scene even too, which is also a fun consideration. Yes. Two that are coming to my mind right now would be like Kate Yon. I think you've done several photos. Yeah.
Kate Yon, yes, one of my favorites. Oh yeah, she's such a powerful vocalist.
And then Sieski.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, those are two who come to mind right now as like repeat subjects recently in recent months. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, Sieski just released
new track recently.
A new track.
Yeah.
I wanted to be there. I wanted to be there at that release. It was at Hipposonic Studios.
Oh, right.
But yeah, it was last Friday, actually, now that I think about it. But there's so much stuff happening.
There is
so much stuff.
It's even a smaller gig list this month.
Yeah.
It's like less than 150. And part of that's been because I've been taking it easy and I didn't stuff it with everything I could possibly spend time looking at. But yeah, that's, June was very intense. There's a lot going on. July was very intense still. Well, it didn't let up much, but yeah.
3 music festivals, right, for you?
Yeah, Jazz Fest, Folk Fest, Fort Langley. Yeah, for sure. Catalano even too. I didn't really do any coverage at Catalano, but I was there.
I saw some of that video,
Yeah. So July, I kept it going. Now I'm really kind of laying low. I haven't been to much recently. Oh, this is fun. Okay, so my last self-indulgent RCP trivia for you is, do you remember who the first ever guest on the podcast was?
Well, wasn't it Ilhan?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
because
yeah,
he's
yeah.
playing tomorrow night.
That's right, yes.
Yeah, and I'm going to be there. Are you going to be there?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Tomorrow is Saturday.
Yeah.
There's a good chance because there's nothing happening at Tyrant Studios tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken.
Maybe nothing on my list.
Yeah.
Maybe they do have something. Tyrant lineup kind of just got finalized. I got what I could get for the new month on the list, and now it's kind of turned over, and now it's out there. So to be determined. Sounds like we'll both be a couple 100 meters from each other no matter what, but whichever venues you could pop into, depending on what's going on at what time, maybe I'll see you there. But I'll be there. Yeah, Dan Howard and Jacob Woodsky from Montreal.
That's right. Yeah. Jacob Woodsky,
coming over.
Actually, he was my first ever album credit. Actually, what? Jacob Woodsky. I did the photography for his debut album.
Oh, it's called Show Yourself, right? That was the first project of his that I reviewed.
Okay.
Yeah,
is that the name of the album?
I think I do remember this because, I mean, he pitched it to me himself, right? No publicist or anything. Yeah, look at this. It's my Rhythm Changes article, March 7th, 2023. Jacob Woodsky, Show Yourself with BC Raised Lucas Dubovic. And the first photo is credited to Sapalo.
Shafooli. Yes. I remember. So that was actually at an After Dark show. Was that an After Dark? Or what did After Dark
I mean, it looks like Frankie's.
Yeah.
But looks like Frankie's for sure. After Dark, I don't know.
It was an Ilhan Safar-Ali show.
So it was the same thing.
Yes.
And you're saying this was the first time that your photography was featured and credited on an album.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And then the second time was a Ryan Oliver project.
Oh.
Well, it's I guess it's a team project. The Cookers Quintet.
Yeah, okay.
Their most recent album, I'm on the back cover. Well, at least my photos are on the back cover.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
If you were on the back cover, I'd be going out buying it tomorrow.
Yeah. It's pretty surreal to see your name, on the back of something that's physical. It's the only other album credit I have is actually just a special thanks, which is a huge honor, actually. That was a huge surprise for me. And
that's really sweet.
Hopefully there are some many more album credits in the future, but I'm not too focused on that.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, my main photo right now is one of yours. My main artist photo that's being used right now. So
it's one of my favorites. Yes. Sorry it takes so long for photos to come out. I'm not sure how long that took.
Oh, don't.
Maybe a year.
No worries. If people want to rush you on when things come out, it just means you need to charge a higher rate. Of course, what I mean by that is, to charge one at all. The fact that you're out there doing it. Just like I'm kind of, I don't make any money directly from doing the gig list or whatever. Or even at this point in time, this podcast, right? It's like, there's no direct exchange of anything for that sort of thing, but you do it just because it's good and it's worth it, right?
That's right. And there are knock-on benefits as well. So
yeah.
So
there's a big question that I could just ask you in one shot, but it might be more fun if we pick it apart, which is like, I mean, how did it come to be you taking photos of, jazz and local musicians out of all the things in the world that you could have ended up kind of specializing in taking photos of? How did we get to this time where that's what it is? So that you could just throw that out in one shot, but I'm also interested to just use it as like a door into your upbringing or into the development of your love of music in general. So take me back as far as you want. Like, I'm not even 100% on where you were born or raised or anything like that. So take me back.
Right. Okay, yeah. I was born in Zambia. And I came to Canada at 3 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, me, my mother, and my sister boarded a plane and landed, was it at Pearson?
In Toronto?
Or Trudeau?
Which city?
It was Montreal.
Okay, yeah. I guess it was like Pierre Elliott Trudeau Airport or something. Yeah.
We landed there first. It was just a layover. I don't know why. I don't know why. I don't know why I mentioned that.
Well, that's important.
I think it's because I really haven't traveled Canada at all.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
We landed in BC, and I've pretty much been here ever since. Visited Washington State, visited Alaska, visited some other countries, but as far as Canada is concerned, yeah, it's kind of shameful. that
Oh, like in terms of the amount of travel. Oh, there's
Yeah,
lots of time.
yeah.
There's lots of time. It's not easy to travel around Canada.
No, it's not. It's such a wide open space.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm getting sidetracked. So where does music come in? I think I've loved, I mean, as far as I can remember, I've always loved the sound of music, listening to music, definitely. Playing music is a whole other thing, which I leave that to the professionals. That's the joke I tell when people ask me if I play music. Let's start from high school, I guess, is where I started playing music.
Okay.
Actually, just before high school. I was in concert band, played the alto saxophone.
Nice.
I was actually originally supposed to play the baritone, not the baritone sax, but
Baritone
the
horn.
yeah. So I guess it's also called the euphonium.
Euphonium, yeah.
Because apparently I could buzz my lips really well.
Oh,
so
nice.
So the band teacher was excited. Yes, finally another brass player, because everybody wants to play, the other instruments. But I found out that my best friend had chosen the alto sax. So of course I wanted to play with him. I wanted to sit in the same section, So last minute I switched, and that was it. So there were many instances in the band room where the teacher would be talking, and we'd have our stands raised high, chatting amongst ourselves, and then the stands would come slam down, and we'd get a glare from the teacher. I was not a very diligent music student, to be honest, but it was a cool experience, going on some band trips and I guess that team aspect as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to go back to a couple things. You said you were born in Zambia. You moved when you were 3 with your sister. You have an older sister?
Younger
sister.
Okay. But much more mature.
But you're the eldest kid?
Yes.
All right. Let's go. Do you have memories of Zambia from that time? Probably a little young for it.
Nada. Nothing. Yeah. We went back in 2015, so that's really those are my only memories of it. My earliest memory is we first lived in a place in Surrey, and I remember across the street was a McDonald's. I don't know why I remember that, but yeah, there was a McDonald's across the street, or at least we were really close to one. So yeah, that's we moved around Surrey, Vancouver, Burnaby, and then Kitimat for 1 year, and then Terrace, BC. That's where I grew up from grades 3 or 4 until a few years out of high school.
Huh.
Yeah.
So that high school experience or just before high school experience you related when you started playing, that was in Terrace.
Yes. Oh, but actually I remember in elementary school, I have some vague memories back here when we lived in Burnaby. I went to an elementary school called Chaffee Burke, which was close to Metrotown, and I still have these faint memories of we had a music class or something. Music is always being cut from school these days, so I'm not sure if they still have those kinds of classes these days. But it was just like a choir, singing Disney tunes. That's what I remember, singing Disney tunes like Little Mermaid or those classic animated songs.
Yeah. Did you dig that, or was it just another thing that happened?
I mean, I liked it. I mean, I was a kid at the time, so yeah. And I grew up really enjoying Disney, Lion King, Little Mermaid, Under the Sea,
Yeah.
Rewinding the VHS because I want to hear the music again over and over again. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yes, there's something there.
Yeah,
The
Star
roots of it.
Wars as well. John Williams was my gateway to
Oh.
classical music and film scores yeah, again, a lot of rewinding, not just to see the scene, but to hear the music as well.
Okay. Yeah, that checks out. That makes sense. So going out of the Lower Mainland to Kitimat and Terrace to the north with your family, was that for your family's work, for your parents' work, and then settling in Terrace?
So my dad, he was in forestry. So I remember there were many times where he would be gone for weeks or maybe months because he'd be out in the bush or he'd be out, doing remote work. So that was happening even when we were down here in Vancouver.
Okay.
Forestry is a sunsetting industry in BC. Well, I guess in general, forestry is, and he couldn't find any work close to home, so he found a job in Terrace, BC. So the first year that we lived in Kitimat was only because we couldn't find any place to live in Terrace. So funnily enough, though, when we moved to Terrace the next year, that job ends, maybe not right away, but a few years later, and he ends up getting a job at the Kitimat Village Band Council. So then he's commuting the other way, in the other direction.
The irony of it, yeah.
And he did that commute until he retired. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah. But they treated him well. So yeah. But I always find that funny. He commuted one way and then he had to go the other way.
Yeah. So your dad is retired now.
He's retired, but you can't stop him from working. He's always got something on the go. He just published his first book, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I still have to read it, but yeah, it details. It's actually, he calls it the fictional history of the formation of, what was the old name of Zambia? Northern Rhodesia. I think that's the title of it. Yeah. It's a fictional account, but the stories are real. Maybe I'll just put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you said you went back to Zambia with your family in 2015. That sounds like that was the first time that you got to go there since you moved out before you could remember.
Yeah. First time leaving North America.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it for a long time or a short time?
3 weeks.
That's it.
Yeah, 3 weeks.
Feels like a long time.
Yeah, it felt long. I was ready to leave. The first weekend, I'm not a great traveler, and I overpacked. And yeah, it was an eye-opening experience for me. It was jarring. I was not prepared, but it was eye-opening. It was my first time being outside of the Western world. First time. Oh man. First time having to deal with light, generator power and lights going out at a certain time. Big benefit of that though was I got to see the Milky Way for the first time. I feel like because when we visited, we didn't stay in one place. We landed in Lusaka, the capital city. And from there, we, every 2 or 3 days, we'd move to another city or village or town because our family's all spread out all over the place. So this experience of the Milky Way, though, that didn't happen until we visited Maheba, which is it's a refugee camp outside of Solwezi, which is it's a copper mining town in the northwestern province of Zambia. Copper is a huge natural resource of Zambia. Even the Zambian national football team, their nickname was the Copper Bullets.
Okay.
Yeah.
Big industry.
Big, huge industry. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not actually all that into soccer. My dad is, but my dad could tell you about all of the stars. But yeah.
Yeah.
My dad is actually, I think he influenced maybe not my tastes in music, but he's always had a love for music as well, and I think that rubbed off on me.
What kind of music did he like?
He likes James Brown. He likes Al Green. Yeah, Motown, soul, funk, those classics. But some of my earliest memories listening to his music, though, well, that he had on tapes, cassettes or CDs, was I still remember standing on me and my sister standing on our beds in our bedroom and air guitaring to Hotel California by the Eagles, or what's that song by Dire Straits?
Money for Nothing? Sultans of Swing?
Maybe it's Sultans of Swing. Yeah. Maybe it's that one. Yeah. Or am I getting the band name wrong? Do you know the song? Is it Song of Life?
I don't know. We gotta pull this one up too.
I got it.
Dire Straits would be a little further ahead in time wise. That's why I don't know if that's what it is, because that would be like mid to late 80s, and all the other things you gave me were like all that like 70s music.
Yeah.
Late 60s through 70s.
Money for Nothing. Walk of Life.
Oh, okay.
That's what
that
it was.
That is Dire Straits, right?
Walk of Life. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It had that. I don't know what instrument that was. Like.
Oh,
it's just
yeah.
So catchy. That is the song, right?
Yeah.
I am getting that right. Yeah. Elton John.
Yeah.
We had this greatest hits Elton John's CD, and I listened to that over and over again. So when I think of Elton John, I don't know Rocket Man. I don't know like Benny and the Jets. I don't know those songs, but I know like Too Low for Zero. What's that song that's been remixed recently? That's
I know what you're talking about.
Because it's a mashup of like three different songs. But I think it's Kiss the Bride. Kiss the Bride is one of the songs that's used. So whenever I hear the chorus of that song, I keep thinking, it's that song. Like, no, it's not that song. It's a remix. Like, damn. Yeah, but that specific era of Elton John is what I think about when I think that music. And funnily enough, I make the joke, now I can say I got to hear Elton John live because I was standing outside of BC Place at Frankie's, of course, when he was doing his farewell tour. Well, farewell tour. Yeah.
Yeah, as much as it could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, just across the block. What about like your mom musically, like versus your dad versus you guys?
My mother is very much more into gospel music.
Okay.
Also music from Africa, Congolese music. Whenever there weren't too many black families in Terrace or up north, but when we did have get-togethers, almost all the time, the music that was played in the background was Congolese rumba, or I guess another name for it is sukus. And I still have to have a conversation with Chris Wong about that, because he loves that kind of music, which I did not know until I every once in a while I'll link some music on my Facebook profile just in case someone's curious on what my current obsession is. and he responded like, oh, it's like, I actually listened to this music quite a bit, and I was surprised, but maybe I shouldn't have been surprised.
Yeah, I don't know very much about that. That would be an exciting journey for me to poke my head into at some point. Yeah.
It's I mean, I like the more upbeat styles, the ones that you can dance to. Not that you'll ever see me dancing to it. but yeah, it's so fun. And I remember the first time I heard there's a band, Jane Bennett is part of Makeke, a Cuban group. And I remember they played at Performance Works, a jazz festival, several years back. And some of what they were playing, I was like, man, it's like, this is Afro-Cuban music, but man, it sounds so similar. It's so familiar. Like, obviously there are connections, and music. It's interesting how music goes. It's like waves in an ocean. It goes from shore to shore, and the waves, they change over time. But it's so interesting how music comes from one area of the world, migrates to another area through different means, like immigration, or slavery. Or and then how it can come back through the airwaves. That's how music like South African jazz kind of came about. Yeah.
Because of the different pathways that the roots of it came from, and it's a mix of those things. Yeah, because of where that place is and where those people are situated in, like, time and place, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot there, and Chris Wong knows a lot about that stuff and a lot of different traditions.
Oh,
He's enjoyed a lot of it.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I really need to dig into that book.
His book, yeah, it's funny. I haven't really, I never read it cover to cover. I read it a few times at different points, like pre-publication too and stuff. But I've never read it cover to cover. I've only ever jumped around the different chapters. Yeah. So I feel like I haven't even read the whole book, but because it keeps revealing things to me. But I'm sure I have. But I remember, like, the first chapter I read. I remember where I went next, and like the path that I took through it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm kind of tempted to, pick the chapters that I'm most interested in first, like.
Yes.
Like Natasha D'Agostino, but I think it would be better for me to just go through it sequentially. But I still have to finish the foreword or the introduction. I can't remember where I'm at. Yeah.
Yeah. You said before we started recording that you were reading a bunch of things right now. Mm-hmm. Is that another, like, artistic medium that is a big thing for you? Do you read often? All kinds of different stuff?
No. Well, I mean, sure. I doom scroll, and I read a lot of stuff on the internet.
Yeah.
But no, reading is something. It's something I've always enjoyed, but it's not something. It's something I've rarely given time to. I'm horrible at taking out a book from the library, and then it's almost time to return it, renew, and then I still haven't even gotten through half of it. So actually, I bought myself an e-reader for Christmas this year.
Oh, nice.
It's just so. I thought it would jumpstart, and it did, my reading. It did at first, but now I've kind of fallen back into, being distracted by all the other things I do. Yeah, I mean, I could be reading just before bed, but instead I'm reading about how the world is going up in flames. or the newest outrage on social media. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's something I've been thinking about a lot, actually, is taking a step away from, taking a step away from social media. I wish I could be like my sister. My sister said goodbye to Facebook like, well, maybe like 10 years ago now, and I thought it was like, yeah, okay, yeah, you'll be back, but no, she never came back. I mean, she's still on some others, but yeah, I want to be able to disengage and not think about all that kind of stuff, because I remember when I grew up, there was no social media. It's kind of crazy to think how there is like a whole, there's like the physical person, and there's the digital identity as well,
right?
That people have, and it's kind of mind-boggling to have to kind of juggle all of that stuff, especially at such an early age these days.
Oh yeah, I can't even imagine. Yeah, for younger than myself. Yeah, what it was like. I kind of had a circuitous way through it. We could talk. I want to talk about this a little bit for sure, because even though you said like this is in front of you, like you said this is something I'm thinking about doing or doing. So you haven't really gone through it all yet, but it'd still be interesting to talk about it. I talk about this kind of thing a lot with my good friend Carson Toro. He's got a lot of opinions and things that he's learned from what he wants out of that process, and how we both want to navigate that and the choices we want to make. But I kind of feel lucky that I stepped out of sync with the progression of even a lot of people my age, because I'm almost 30 years old now, so I'm in a interesting kind of midpoint there, where a lot of people who are in their early 20s today, it's completely different experience that I can hear about from them, but I'll never really understand, right? So that's kind of gone. But I mean, even for people my age, I got a smartphone for the first time really in 2018. When I was 23 years old. And before then, I had a flip phone. I got a smartphone. I borrowed an old smartphone from my mom when I went on my solo trip to Europe when I was 20. And I had that smartphone for less than a year, and then I gave it back. I went back to using my flip phone for the following 2 or 3 years. And then when I started my old band, Early Spirit, I got a smartphone to use as a tool for the band and for to manage, email and social media and all that stuff in a new way that I didn't need before. But I got a smartphone for the first time in 2018 when I was 23. So I didn't have a smartphone for my entire high school. And I think that is an out of sync step, even for people my age. I mean, obviously that's long gone for anybody younger than me. But I feel kind of lucky that it went that way. Now, that didn't mean I didn't use social media. I did kind of go on and off of various social medias over time. I don't have a continuity of social media. Like, there's no account where you can trace back posts that I've had over the years, because I didn't continuously post over the years. I had a Facebook account, and then I didn't, and then maybe I did, and then I didn't, and now like I don't really, like, I just kind of have those pages that I update. I don't have the history. All that to say, like, I didn't do it intentionally, but I ended up like stepping out of sync on that process. And therefore, I feel kind of lucky about that, because I feel like it's put me in a position where I'm not just automatically executing whatever technological path I grew up on. What do you think about this?
Well, no, I mean, I think there's a lot of value in that. I resisted social media for the longest time, because I remember when I grew up, the advice was, you don't share your real name, or your online identity was supposed to be anonymous, and then social media kind of just blew that wide open. But for a long time, I never posted any photos of myself. But to answer your question, what do I think? I mean, I think, like I was saying, I think it's too much too early for
yeah, absolutely.
I don't know how soon. I don't know what the average age
I don't want to know.
Yeah. But it's to have all of that stuff swimming around. We live in such a fast-paced world with things being thrown at us from every direction, and it's hard to pause and take a step back. And I feel pretty entrenched in it. I wish I could, desynchronize and not feel the need to, always be inside of it.
Yeah.
I it's very hard because as much as I grown about it, it's given me. I couldn't do my jazz flights without social media. People ask me how I find out about all the shows that I go to, and it's a variety of sources. One of the biggest sources is, of course, your Rhythm Changes website. I check it constantly.
Thank you.
Every day, but also meeting people and them reaching out to me, sending me invites. Once in a while, I'll get like 10 or 15 notifications on Facebook, and it's usually notifications from the same person, Tim Reinert, inviting me to all of the upcoming shows that he has planned, and it's so awesome to see. The pandemic definitely did a number on the Vancouver scene, but I think that what's that saying? Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Yeah. We had it actually pretty easy here in Vancouver. I can't imagine how it was in other places.
You're talking pandemic-wise.
Yeah. Lockdown restrictions, because like wasn't it only a few months that we were without? Was it a few months, or am I thinking longer?
That we were without what?
Without not being able to go out to hear music.
I agree with you, because if that's the standard, to not be able to hear, then it was a very brief time, because there were places, over that time period where there was something. There wasn't a lot going on. There, for the vast majority of even that time, there was always something.
Yes. Yeah. But there was a general feeling that, well, we did lose a lot of places. Some places were already on their way out, and the pandemic kind of just hastened it. But yeah, we've seen a resurgence, and it's dizzying when I open up the gig list and I see, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and sometimes Mondays aren't even safe anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was checking some things there because I was thinking about like accounts and notifications and things like that too. And I was like, well, what do I have now? Where am I at with that? And I realized that, I don't really have any social media apps on my phone right now, oddly enough. Because a little while ago, like post festival season, I took the Instagram app off my phone, and I work for Cellar. So I post from the Cellar Live from the Cellar Live Instagram account, right? I need to do that about once a week. So the last couple of times when I needed to do that, I download the app and I log in on the Cellar account, not even on the Rhythm Changes account, and I make those posts, and then I get rid of it again. And I've actually been there for a few weeks. And so I just check the DMs on the Rhythm Changes account on my computer. And that has been okay for me. I don't have the Facebook app on my phone. I don't have the X app on my phone either. So that's going okay for me. And then I have, my work email app and my non-work email app. And I have the different kind of messaging apps like WhatsApp and Signal and iPhone messages and stuff like that, where it's not like very organized, like where I hear from each individual. But I have enough of those things that I hear from, like you were saying when you were talking about where you hear about gigs, you know, I have this weird tapestry of where I hear about them.
Yes.
And that's, you know, and I can't cut Instagram out of that. But it's like I was looking around my phone because we started talking about this, and I realized that I kind of have pared down to the point where I really do use social media almost strictly for that function of it, where I need to use it to gather gigs. And I've fortunately settled into a place for the time being where I am not using that as a license to then go and spend tons of time on social media and then telling myself, oh, I can't stop it or change it because I need it for this one purpose. Like I have actually managed to strip it down a little bit, and it doesn't come easily. So it's fortunate that I've ended up there, at least for now, this summer.
Yeah, that's a place where I need to get to. Yeah, I'm working on that.
Yeah. I mean, there's also like, I don't really feel like I need to post because I am distributing, you know, my stuff elsewhere, you know, like through the free weekly email at Rhythm Changes. There's enough people there that I don't really need to post on Instagram, sort of. And sure, there are people who like, they won't see it and they only see it on Instagram. And I just have to be like, well, that's okay. Like those people, if they are interested in Rhythm Changes, they'll come over here at some point. And if they're not, then they're not, and that's totally fine. People can do their own thing. I don't need everybody's attention. I'm grateful for all of it that is there, but it's just, in no way do I need 100%, you know, coverage of people paying attention to it. So, but you have used social media, especially your Instagram feed, as a destination for what you do, and you've talked about how you sometimes you feel like you're not publishing frequently. You know, there's a frequency consideration there for you, so that's something that you have to think about. I do too, but you especially, that's like very visible in that way.
And I also go through cycles where it's like, okay, well, does anyone really care? And then
yes,
and then you have to push through that. And then I go through phases where I'm like, oh, this is great. Everything's fine.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. There's all kinds of different examples of that I could point to, and I think that's a sentiment that every musician you talk to will agree with as well. You know, they'll think about that in terms of their artistry and how they feel other people might feel about it. You know, or at least their own perception of how it gets received and how they struggle with that. It's an artist's curse in so many ways, right?
Oh yeah, it's always surprising. It's always surprising to me what people's favorites are. You know, when I show them my photos and they pick out a photo that I totally disregarded. Just, you know, sometimes it's like, oh, interesting. Sometimes that gives me pause, and I have to remember that when I'm you know, down on myself, or I'm like, all of my photos are worthless. I go through those phases, and then once in a while someone will mention out of the blue, like, hey, that photo that you took of me or someone else, it's like, that was amazing, or something, because I want to get back into photographing things other than humans.
Okay.
Scenery. I really like clouds and skies, birds. Actually, I guess that's what I just posted most recently. Yeah, that's kind of what I've been on a roll with. But yeah.
You're saying get back into that though. So you were at some point.
I was, because that's how I started. Actually,
okay.
So I never really answered your question about how I got into music photography.
Yeah, but this is a wrinkle that's directly related to that.
Yeah. I mean, the music came first, of course.
Yeah.
Hearing music came first. Going to shows, and I just wanted to be able to have something to look back at and be like, yeah, I was at that show. Because I don't have a journal. I don't have, and I think that's something I want to change. I want to be able to have a better recollection of what I've gone through, because there's a lot of blank spaces.
Yeah.
Photographers, a lot of photographers are famously camera shy themselves, and I am. And I look at photos of myself, and there are huge gaps of, what I look like at like 18, and then like there's like nothing, and then like 28, right? What I wanted to do is be able to remember that stuff. But then, because I was already on social media, it just became a natural want, well, a natural desire to share, like, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
This is what's happening. You should check this out. And yeah, it just started with my phone, really. I was taking it was video first, to be honest. I used to take long videos. I used to take videos of whole songs. Sometimes I used to take whole sets. And not every musician likes that. Younger musicians want all of tend to want all of the footage, or all anything that they can get, because it's great promotional material. They can use it for other things. Older musicians were less happy about that, and when I was younger, I didn't really understand why, but I do understand the feelings behind that now, especially how things were back in the day, when you had to actually put together, electronic press kits, and you had much more control over your image, over what was going out there. Now it's, anyone like me can show up with a phone, and maybe that tune that I happened to record wasn't your hottest take. So yeah, I can understand that. But there were musicians who would tell me, man, like, I watch your stuff like all the time. It's like, because I can't go out to shows, I'm so busy. You're really a great resource.
I feel this way.
You do. and that's something that I never actually, I never considered that.
There was one thing that I don't know if I got, which was, do you consider yourself a jazz fan in particular, even, or maybe not? And like, when you were coming up, did you have a moment where it's like, oh, I discovered jazz? Or is the genre bit, maybe it doesn't matter so much to you? There's different ways you could feel about that. How do you feel about that?
So you mean, how do I view myself as can you rephrase that?
Because like, when you were coming up, I heard about the different kinds of music that inspired you and things.
Oh,
and
I
now
see.
you've come to where, like,
see.
a lot of your activity, it happens to be in the jazz genre, but it doesn't seem like there's an origin moment quite yet where it's like, oh, I discovered jazz. But then maybe the distinction doesn't matter so much to you to begin with.
Tim Reiner brought this up actually in his interview, or his conversation, about how in Vancouver, at least, jazz music is it's one of the more accessible forms of music. When it comes to being able to attend a show, or maybe not find out about a show, but when I first discovered live music here in Vancouver, coming from a small town, Terrace, BC, I'm not really sure how much live music there was up there.
Right.
And I say that because I wasn't really looking for live music up there. when I was growing up, music for me was, sitting in my parents' basement, uh, surfing the internet, downloading uh, MP3s on Napster.
Yeah.
And I guess I just aged myself, but yeah. And I was mentioning electronic music before. I was really into electronic music, like trance music and house music, the danceable styles of electronic music. I also liked the more chiller styles too, like ambient and trip hop. But I was not a part of the scene at all, or the scene that I could engage with was online. It was on forums. It was in chat rooms. I've never been to a rave. Never been to an abandoned warehouse party. So that aspect of the music was totally foreign to me. My idea of live music was also, when I was younger, was also very different. When I thought about live music as a kid, I was thinking, concert halls and large venues. I had no concept of somebody busking on the street corner. I've seen so much great music on my way to another show, because I'm going through Gastown, and and there's a musician busking, and I have to take out my earbuds and listen. Actually, I made a few friends that way.
Yeah, because you're paying attention. People
Yes.
walk right by all kinds of things, but you're paying attention.
That's right. Yeah. So when I first started getting into the live music here in Vancouver, I started checking out Canada Place. Pan Pacific Hotel has I think it was called Cascade Lounge. It was a piano bar, and one of the first people I heard there, his name was Lyndon Davies.
Okay.
Played piano and sang, and where else would I go? O'Doul's.
Yeah. Okay.
O'Doul's.
I never got to go there.
I went there just a couple times. Fairmont Pacific Rim.
Yeah.
Their lobby lounge. Actually, so okay. Since I mentioned the Fairmont Pacific Rim, my very first jazz festival, I tell this story a lot because that was really my entry point into American jazz, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I've always liked aspects of jazz music that I've heard, I think, in the other styles that I've enjoyed, which is something I only realized after I finally started listening to, Miles Davis and Louis Armstrong and, all of that stuff. Music being one of my obsessions, but I was not too much anymore, but I used to really be into anime and video games.
Yeah.
And the musical component of almost anything I'm interested in, that's kind of what I key in on. So anime soundtracks and video game soundtracks, and these composers, many of them, formerly trained musicians, especially, music from Japan that I was listening to. It didn't matter if it was pop music or if it was electronic music. There always seemed to be this underlying, I'm not sure if it's like the harmonic structure, but there seemed to be these elements of jazz
For sure.
that maybe that's why I liked
Oh yeah.
those styles so much. So because to be honest, I got into Japanese jazz way before I got into American jazz.
Oh, that's why you said American jazz. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that that's what, yeah, I make the distinction. Yeah.
Yeah.
And bossa nova was actually one of my main entry points into I guess jazz proper as well. And a lot of that had to do with what I was listening to through, video games and anime. I mean, you can just go back to the Super Mario theme. It's got that rhythm to it.
For sure.
When I dove into it, I was trying to understand why I was hearing so much Brazilian influence in Japanese music. And then I did some digging about the cross-cultural exchange that has took place between the two countries, because Brazil has the largest diaspora of Japanese in the world.
Really?
Yes, which surprised me when I first read that. I was like, I don't know why I assumed it would have been the United States, but but yeah. And it's funny. I had a coworker. He just came back from a vacation a few months ago in Brazil, and he told me, "Guess where I had the best ramen I've ever had."
This is definitely an interest of yours.
Yes,
too.
yes, yeah. Yes, anyone that knows me, I'm all about ramen as well. I just had some yesterday.
Very good.
Yeah.
So what was you saying about your first jazz fest?
My first jazz festival, my first two shows that I saw took place in the CBC building. I believe it was, which studio was it? They no longer use it. It was the studio where the radio orchestra used to record. And I got to hear Mimosa, who I actually just heard yesterday.
Yeah.
They were playing at Cole Harbor Park. So they were one of my first jazz acts, and also Melody Dacian.
Yeah.
Those two performances pretty much got the ball rolling. Specifically Melodies, because a year after that show, I saw her perform at Fairmont Pacific Rim, and when they took their break, I was not so the way have you been inside?
Not for a while.
Okay. It's I don't know how to describe it. It's a large open lobby, and I wasn't actually in the restaurant seating area. I was actually just standing off against the wall off to the side. So during the break, she came up to me and she said, you look familiar. And I said, yeah, I saw you last year at the jazz festival. I did also, I bought a CD at that time. So yeah, that probably made me memorable as well.
Yeah.
And she said, me and my band were having a bite to eat. Would you like to join us? And I was like, well, I said yes. I think normally I probably would have declined. I'm a pretty shy person, but yeah, I said yes, and I got to sit down and have a conversation with four great people, and they were also very interested in me. And because the way I see musicians, I kind of put them on a pedestal. I kind of like some people put actors,
Athletes,
yeah. So, but then to be reminded that everyone's human, and just having that one-to-one conversation, that really that connection, I think, started things going with me trying to check out more shows. Of course, I became a fan of Melody, so I would try to go hear her at other places. I think that's what led me to O'Doul's, actually. So I think it was Fairmont first, and then because I would go online and probably find out through her Facebook page, where she was playing. So O'Doul's popped up, and I'm like, ooh, it's like I don't know, that's kind of a fancy restaurant. I'm not sure if I should go. I felt that way about almost any new place, new venue I go to. I'm kind of apprehensive at first, but then I usually warm up to it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Cellar.
I was just gonna ask you about Corey Weeds' Jazz Cellar, because it's right around this time. We haven't specified exactly what year this is, but this is around the time when the Cellar is going pretty strong.
Yeah. So so to give a time frame, I moved to Vancouver in 2008.
Yeah.
I went to my first jazz festival the year afterwards.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
And then the year after that, that's when I saw Melody so I guess that would be 2010.
Interesting. Okay.
And then a few years after that, I think O'Doul's closed shortly after that, and then the Cellar shortly after that.
Yeah.
So I kind of had a joke to myself as I'm the harbinger of
getting it on the way out. Yeah.
Once I discover a place, then it's
clock starts ticking.
Yeah.
That's funny, because so our time frames in terms of when we started getting exposed to the scene are almost identical, because I did it around the same time. But the problem for me was I was under 18, so like I didn't get to go to I didn't go to a lot of those places just because I was younger and it was a different kind of thing. So that's why I never really made it to O'Doul's in particular, I would say, just because it didn't crop up as a place that I would have gone to when I was in my teens. But that is also around the same actual era when I first started to notice things, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if you have this feeling, but the more stories I hear from other people, the more the feeling I get is like I just came onto the scene as an era was ending.
Yeah, because I've talked about this on this show before, where we recognize that period of time that my friends and I came of age into as like a lull. Mm-hmm. Now that we see that it's the water level is higher now in like a good way.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I had just missed musicians like Amanda Tosoff.
Same. Yeah, I feel the same way. You should read that chapter of Chris Wong's book. That was one of your first ones. Yeah,
the rhythm section, right? Yeah. Or no,
the rhythm section is
Jody
Tilden.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, what am I thinking
Amanda Tosoff has her own chapter, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I can't remember. Maybe it was Chris who maybe was in a conversation. He mentioned about how Amanda and Morgan Childs and was there one other person were like the new
Sean Cronin was also one of those people.
Yeah, like they were like the new
Evan Arntzen,
young lions of the scene. Yeah.
And people who are a little older, who are older than you. Mm-hmm, but who were tearing it up at around that time, and then they all kind of moved away at around the same time.
That's right. Yeah. Fortunately, I've been able to see and hear all of them, and I need to go back and listen to that Earth Voices again.
Oh, that album is so good,
man.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's one of the best best Vancouver jazz albums of the era, in my opinion.
There's-
Even though it's not really a Vancouver jazz
Yeah.
album, but I'm claiming it as such.
There are some songs that I just put on repeat over and over again. It's just so nice to have a vocal project like that.
Yeah. There's shades of the Ostara project in that too, you know. The Ostara project is definitely capable of putting out an album of that caliber too, but I would still take that over the group's current output personally, which I also love. But they're both great, so it's great that they both exist.
Yeah, I actually, confession, I haven't listened to the Ostara project.
Have you heard them live? Yeah,
I have.
Okay, yeah, so you got that. Yeah,
I've heard them live on 2 occasions or once.
Yeah,
it was definitely at Jazz at the Bolt.
Yes,
and that was fantastic.
Agreed. That was the birth of the current state of Rhythm Changes. That was the first ever free weekly email ever. Was after I saw that. It was me writing about that. Yeah, so I owe a lot to. And now I work on Jazz at the Bolt with Corey.
That's
with
right.
Tim now too, but Jazz at the Bolt was such an important thing for Rhythm Changes, and that concert was very important.
And they're already well, I've already seen some promotional stuff about next year.
That's correct.
Yeah, I'm excited to see.
We're working on it.
Unfortunately, though, I'm not sure if I have the stamina for. I mean, I didn't go to the first Jazz at the Bolt, but I went to the second one. And I went all 3 days.
Wow.
Or actually, technically all 4 days. Well, 2 nights and then 2 days, because there was a Thursday. There was a Thursday invite only. It was a rehearsal for the big band. So I got to hear that, and then Friday was, I guess, mainly in the evening,
like
right?
The feature concert.
Concert. Yeah. So there was a time when I could take in a whirlwind of events, but now, I mean, man, like this year I only did the Sunday, which is the same. I think last year I only did 1 day. I can barely do Jazz Festival these days. It's
oh gosh, I don't even want to think about it right now.
It's because, I mean, it's funny. You would think I would be all about it, because I pretty much go to multiple shows most times I go out. But yeah, I guess when it's a full day and there's just so much choice, and I feel like I want to be in 10 different places at once. And it's also during the summer, where, I mean, summer is not actually my favorite time of year. It's too hot.
Like today.
Yeah. So when it's cooler, then I stop hibernating. Yeah.
What was really nice though about this year's Jazz at the Bolt was that we got to hear Melody. You were just talking about her, and she came to play.
That was that was probably my favorite concert, and not just because it was Melody and Doug, but it was special. And I thought she said she was gonna come to town this year, but
there's still time.
There's still time. Yeah, she's doing great things in Nelson. My goodness. Yeah, I remember when they moved away.
Right.
And now she's the school chair of
Selkirk.
Yeah.
You know what's a crazy crossover? You know the indie artist Hallelujah Hailu? Yeah, her Rhythm Changes podcast episode happened after her first year at Selkirk, and she talks about taking lessons from Melody.
Oh, really? Oh, I need to listen to that episode. Because I've seen her name, and I've seen her name out in the ether, but I haven't heard her yet.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, you like her music too. Yeah, it's like an indie pop artist, but she's talking about Melody.
That would be up my alley.
Yeah. Well, that was the first time I heard Melody Dation live. It was the Sting project, Summer's Tales.
That's
music
right.
of Sting, which was great. I love that album.
Another great album.
Yeah, but I hadn't gotten to hear her live because she'd been based up there the whole time that I was kind of into it. So it was great to connect with her. Yeah, from Jazz at the Bolt 2024. Yeah, we'll see what next year brings.
She had just put out her EQ album when I'd first met her,
which is on Cellar.
It's
a Cellar album,
and Corey plays on that.
Yeah.
I don't think Corey was on that gig at the jazz festival that I went to, but
probably not. Yeah, I was just thinking about that being a Cellar album because I was just making these like this new class of playlists. Like Cellar put out these like playlist compilations a few years ago. Like 50 track playlists from different, organized around different themes, like Greasy Organ Trio or Vocalist or something. And I was just putting together like this year there's a new class of Cellar playlists that came out, and I put a track from that album onto one of them.
Oh, all right.
That's how I was like, dude, I knew right away. I was like, oh, that's a Cellar album.
Which one? Did you remember?
No, I'd have to look.
That album was my introduction to a lot of tunes, like Free Man in Paris, Lothario, or was Lothario an original song from her? When Beauty Reigns was definitely an original, and that's how I first found out about her, because there was a music video for that song on YouTube. So I took a listen to that. I'm like, oh, this sounds interesting. This doesn't sound like the jazz when I think of jazz, like which is what did I think jazz sounded like back then? You just like a bunch of instruments going crazy and scatting and noise, I guess. That's that's how I used to think of it, because going back to my concert band days, we did have a jazz band, but I did not.
You weren't in it, yeah.
No, I did not participate at all. Jazz was not cool back then. Neither was waking up at 5 a.m. to go to school. I mean, I was the kind of person, getting up at 8:30, rolling out of bed at 8:30, and getting to school at 9. Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, but so I knew my opinion of jazz music was that it was intellectual, too cerebral. Like I think Tim, I keep mentioning Tim because I was listening to his episode, but he mentioned how people are intimidated by jazz, or how people think that you need to know something, or you need to be able to understand.
Yeah, and he's not just talking about avant-garde music. He's talking about just jazz in general.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. I mean, that's how I felt about. That's how I feel about avant-garde jazz now. Like I feel like it's like it doesn't. Like, what am I missing? But I think I just have to go back to just letting it wash over me and taking it from there. Because when I listen to music, it's an emotional thing mainly. It's just an emotional response. I'm not really thinking too much about the technical aspects. There's not too much I can actually glean. I can tell meter and rhythm. Harmony, I'm not that great at. I remember one time we were at a show, and you said this was a rhythm changes. This was a rhythm changes song, and I had to listen really carefully, like, because for some reason it's hard for me to hear that chord progression. But there's some others that I can pick up. I have a much easier time with melodies. Like when I hear the head of something, if I can remember what the song title is, I can usually get it. So I'm good that way. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't expect you to identify rhythm changes tune either. That's probably why I would volunteer that information. But I like to point them out just because of the name of the publication and stuff. Yeah. It was like the spot in the wild.
That's right. Yeah, it's funny. What are some other well, besides the blues progression, what are some others that are like just rampant in jazz?
Like full on fixed progressions chord by chord, there's not very many.
Not very many,
there's
eh?
just the templates of forms,
Yeah.
like the AABA form
Yeah.
and the ABAC form and stuff like that. But there's not a huge amount of like full on like all the chords lined up in a row like templates that get copied. There's not many more than just rhythm changes on the blues for sure. There's not very many more.
It's so interesting how are you familiar with breakbeat music?
I mean, I think I know what it is,
Yeah.
but I'm not really familiar beyond that now.
So a lot of breakbeat, well, it's a heavily sample based music. At the core of most songs is, a sample. It's usually from a song, Funky Drummer.
Mm-hmm. James Brown.
James Brown.
Yeah.
And then, is that the Amen break?
Okay, yeah, I know what that is.
The Amen,
I can't remember what that original source of that song.
Yes.
I don't think it's actually the same track, but those are very similar things that we're talking about here.
But-
Is that funky drummer beat, and then also
And
that.
then
Yeah.
the Amen break. Yeah, but so like, it's funny to think like whole styles of music have been kind of built on like, just like tiny segments of sound and just being expanded upon.
Yeah.
Just
You know what's so funny that I gotta go and look up again? That
Mm-hmm.
if you haven't seen this, you'll probably find it funny. There was like a Vox YouTube video, explainer video that was made about like this Nick Jonas song or something that used the Amen break.
Oh,
and they like pull up the original and they compare it to. And it's like, for me, it was kind of depressing because like it makes the Nick Jonas song sound so like sanitized and quantized version of it.
Oh,
that's what it kind of revealed about it to me. Where it just felt like it was all snapped to a grid and it wasn't funky at all anymore. But
quantization,
I'll find that and I'll link it to you.
all right. I thought you were gonna talk about maybe like the proliferation of the lick or something.
Oh.
Because there's a YouTube video, there's a supercut of the lick being played.
You know what I was going to mention earlier when we were talking about social media as well, is very recently I was talking with a musician who I don't know if he's a listener. I don't know if he's going to hear this, but we were walking to a bus stop after something and he was telling me like, oh, have you heard about this like meme account, or have you heard about this thing that happened on Instagram or whatever? And I was like, you can safely assume that the answer is no anytime you ask me if I've heard about it. And so I appreciate you telling me about them because I find it funny and amusing, but it's definitely not something I keep up with, right? And he said, I don't know why, but I know that jazz has like such a strong connection with memes, and like memes are such an important part of jazz. And the subtext being like, especially for people his age, right? This guy's younger than me. So you would agree with that too, probably. Hey, do you feel that memes are very important to jazz today?
I mean, in its current form, I'm trying not to mention Gordy Lee though, but
everybody appreciates his contributions too, for sure. And his episode is the most popular of all time on this podcast.
He's who I think of when I think jazz memes,
and that's what this friend of mine was saying too. Well, he was also talking about him, of course.
I see.
Yeah.
So
not
that's
related to the specific things he was asking me if I had heard of, but just like when we went on to talk about memes and jazz.
Yeah. Well, I mean, memes are just the propagation of ideas, right?
Yeah. The reason why I agreed that I think memes are important to jazz is because I think being a student is really important to jazz. Like there's a student university culture around learning jazz and playing jazz, and an online culture, like you were saying, like you didn't go to a rave, but you became a fan of electronic dance music, right? So there's being a student and like having student friends and being like a student kid is like a very important part of learning to play jazz, much more so than learning to play rock or pop or anything else, right? And I think sharing memes is the most natural thing for a bunch of students to do at this point. And that's why I thought that's why memes have been so important to jazz over the last like 15 years.
Yeah, to be honest, the whole meme culture goes over my head.
Oh yeah, me too. That's what I got to my caveat. Yeah.
I usually have to be caught up to like what's going on.
Yeah. So we're on the same page on that front.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it's there, and we see it.
We do. And well, speaking of like Gordy and that generation, it specifically, it's so great. I mean, for me to be able to hear, their output, because their interests kind of line up with what I used to be really invested in, and I'm talking about video game music and anime music. Sitting at home in Terrace, BC, I had no idea, no concept that I could be sitting. I could be sitting in a concert hall and listening to, Studio Ghibli music, performed live, or just things of that nature, things coming alive that I had just relegated to recordings, which I guess, kind of jumping off of that. One of the things I really enjoy is our album tribute shows, where a group says, okay, we're gonna play tunes from this record, and they'll play it all the way through. That was my introduction to Cannonball Adderley and Nancy Wilson. I got to hear that Melody Dation, Corey Weeds, and Sharon Minamoto, Doug Stevenson on bass. Who was on drums though? Was it Joe?
Maybe we'll be able to find out somehow.
Yeah, but yeah. So that was I didn't know who Cannonball Adderley was before that. Maybe I did. I didn't know who Nancy Wilson was. Didn't know any of these tunes. Loved all of them. As soon as I got home, I found the album and I took a listen, and that took me down another rabbit hole. So yeah, just getting to hear music come alive, and then being able to take that and what am I trying to say? I mean, it's just another door opening, really.
It's given you a point of attachment to
yes.
Those shows give you a point of attachment to the album. Even if you have already heard of it, it wouldn't have meant something to you until you had that tangible experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, and I'm not saying everyone should be doing album tribute shows, but when they do happen, yeah, like when Corey puts together, a tribute to like Hank Mobley. Man, I'm there because I really like Hank Mobley too, but but that kind of jazz too is that's my strike zone. Like when it comes to jazz music, that bebop to post bop,
50s, 60s.
Yeah. So I'm very much in that kind of straight ahead zone, which isn't to say I don't listen to trad jazz or Roma jazz. I love Roma jazz, actually.
Jazz of the Vault.
Yes.
Heads up for that. Just so
yes. Oh, are they going to be? Yes, they are. Oh,
they might be. I will say that. But I'll say it now. They might be. I don't know why I would have said that if not, but they might.
Yeah. Be. All right. Because I love strings.
Nice.
I tell people I'm a sucker for strings, but cello. The deeper voices I tend to prefer. I mean, violins are great too, but when I found out that Conrad Good also plays the cello. Well, I think that's what did he start on that?
Maybe he's got to come on this show and we'll find out.
Yeah, we had a conversation about that. Emilio Suarez,
Yeah,
once in a while plays.
he just played cello at Brentwood.
Did
Jazz
he?
Even song, yeah.
And I missed it. Yeah, he was on a Ryuichi Sakamoto and Ghibli.
Oh, it's Saul Alviar's project.
That's right.
Sakamoto and
that
Hisaishi.
That's right. That
Great
was
project.
Man. That was amazing. That was amazing.
Vancouver jazz scene where you have two bands dedicated to the music of Studio Ghibli, Joe Hisaishi.
And Piotr Cow
Yeah.
is a game lobby.
Oh yeah.
Playing music from Persona and other video games.
I'm still due to play him in Super Smash Bros. Melee. We
Oh,
haven't
really?
set that up yet. Yeah, I'm overdue.
If they ever play Tekken music, I'll be there.
Take notes, okay?
No, yeah, I'm just throwing it out there.
That's a good one.
I honestly, I could nerd out about Namco, especially that video game company. Well, I guess they're Bandai Namco now, and they have, the music's it's not the same, because music changes and the trends change. When I was growing up, the music in those games were very electronic, industrial rock influenced, and that was what I was listening to. Now I'm trying to listen to the music, and I don't want to come off as, an old man, but
it's just not the same.
It's
these
not
days.
Yes, I keep pining for the glory days. Yeah, the salad days.
You have every right to.
No, yeah, but just the amount of talent that game companies employed back then, like actually having composers on staff, because nowadays the trend is to contract it out, so you're no longer on staff. Does that make a difference with the type of music that's coming out? I mean maybe it's better in some ways. I think a lot of in video game music, because you have to churn out so much, you can easily start to get stale or experience burnout. And now that a lot of video game composers who were on staff and now are working solo projects, now they have that more creative freedom to work on their own things as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I was thinking, because I know Piotr also did a Pokemon themed one.
Yeah,
I
he
was
did.
thinking like the Nintendo composers. There's a lot there too.
There is a lot. I don't know too much about Nintendo music, to be honest, because I made the choice early on as a kid that Sega was cooler.
The console wars.
The console wars that I got swept up into, which, in hindsight is just dumb. It's just enjoy whatever you want. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But yeah, it did matter back when there were, you could only afford one system, and some games only came out on that one system.
Yep. Yeah, Piotr, I would love to hear an episode of him here too, talking about that stuff. That side of the scene is so interesting. I talked about it with like Justin Wan on piano, because he played in some of the stuff. And
oh yeah,
Gordy,
you have
right?
you do have an episode with him.
Justin was a recent one, where we talked a bit about
that's
this.
right.
Yeah. Because the Cowboy Bebop band was just starting to pop off around the time we recorded that episode, and he had played a gig with them, and so that was my first chance to ask somebody about that project, which was like all the rage starting then, and like they're going to continue to be through the rest of this year. So it's still it's one of the big themes of the year is that this side of the scene is so exciting to people and is reaching so many more people.
I'm actually, I don't know, I'm kind of surprised that this hasn't happened sooner.
I know, right?
Like people haven't been doing this music sooner. But I think they say in fashion goes in like 20-year cycles.
Oh yeah.
Because the people who are making the decisions, it takes, well, you're influenced as a kid and a teenager, and like for me, like, you know, the 90s. So the 90s were a magical time when you tie dye and you Velcro and baggy pants and neon, a lot of bright colors too. And a lot of that stuff is coming back because now we're in the positions to make the decisions and push, like, okay, this is what was cool when I was growing up. This is what I'm going to inject into my ideas and put out into the world, and maybe that's why now we're seeing video game music and anime music kind of bleed into this scene. I mean, well, I don't listen to or follow Patrick. Is it Bartley or Bartlett?
Yeah, Faven brought him up too. I think, or somebody brought him up recently, and I was like, okay, that's another important kind of influence that deserves to be named in all this.
I'm aware of him because I've seen him pop up on Instagram.
That's funny that you haven't listened to him because you have like all the same interests. Like he plays J jazz and he lives in Japan and like
I know. So maybe
saxophone.
Maybe I guess I just have too much other stuff going on. Like, to be honest, like I don't actually listen to all that much jazz at home anymore. There was a point where it was pretty much 90% of the gigs, or 100% of the gigs I would go to were jazz, and what I was listening to at home was mainly jazz. You asked me earlier, what was the point when I discovered jazz,
or like how much did genres matter? Yeah,
I mean, genres, I guess, don't matter too much to me anymore. But coming up, I've always wanted to know, okay, what is this called?
Yeah.
Like, what do you call this? Because, I want to find more of that stuff. But at the end of the day, these are just labels, and labels are malleable and they change over time and they can mean different things to different people. Like, garage music here in North America is quite different than garage music in the UK.
Yeah,
the UK garage is quite different than garage house. Two different types of house music. But it was really that jazz festival, and then the snowball after that, and then trying to hear more of that music. I started listening to CBC radio. At the time, Katie Malik and her program Tonic.
Yeah.
On weekends, Tim Tamashiro was the host, and Tim, I've been able to hear him a few times. He's played at Frankie's. He's a pretty funny guy.
Got an album on Cellar.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. But I learned a lot through that program. Not just listening to the tunes, but also the stories that Katie would tell, because it's something I value a lot are the people who still have that connection, the bridge to the people who came before, like Brad Shigeta. I love when Brad Shigeta talks about how who was that band leader? Was it, he wasn't he part of the Ellington big band?
Again, we got to get him on here so we can hear the stories.
And obviously, he wasn't there when Ellington was still there, but I mean, to be able to play with the people who did, and John Gross, John Gross can talk about Shelly Manne.
I feel like he's getting a lot of he deserves to get all the flowers that he's getting right now, and he's finally getting some flowers.
John Gross?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's coming. I think it's still in progress, but I think he's going to be getting his flowers, and I think that's very, very, very cool.
He's just such a blessing for him to land in Vancouver. Never heard of him until just like I never heard
until you heard him live.
Until I heard him live, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like most of the time I've never heard of a musician until I see them listed on the Frankie's website, or the Cellar website when it was the Cellar, and then being just totally blown away, and I was saying I don't listen to too much jazz at home anymore, because I had a phase where jazz was like the greatest thing ever invented, and I wanted to tell everybody about it. It's like, man, it's like you guys should listen to jazz. Like, you really need to check this out. It's not all that bad, like you can find something that you like. And I was almost like like an evangelist for this thing. And I've cooled down. I mean, because there's just so much music happening, and I tend to, start out very intense with something. When I was into electronic music, very intensely, I thought I was going to be listening to electronic music for the rest of my life. I couldn't imagine never listening to trance. It's like, what? It's like, when I'm 30 or 40, I'm not going to be listening to this. I'm going to grow out of it. And I mean, not that I did. It did kind of. There was an ebb and flow. Jazz did actually take over for like almost 10 years. And now I've slowly started sliding back into listening to like my back catalog, or music that I used to listen to, but also becoming much more open to pop music, because when I was younger, I was very proudly not listening to the radio. Right. I was not listening to the mainstream,
because you had the internet as the tool at the time coming out as a way that you could discover your own taste.
It's true. That's right. But there was also this, I don't want to be like everybody else. I want to be unique.
Oh, totally. But that's what enabled you to pursue that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So, but I mean, nowadays, I mean, maybe I shouldn't say this out loud, but I mean, I'm listening to artists like Taylor Swift.
Oh no, go ahead.
Ariana Grande, music where, in the past, before, if I was younger, I would have totally dismissed it, and just see it as having no value or shallow, Yeah.
But it's all there, and it doesn't cost you your experience of listening to jazz if you go and listen to something like that. Anything. No, it doesn't.
But there's only so much time there's only so much time. Yeah,
it's true of everything. But it doesn't. It's not like you're trying to position yourself in the same way that a lot of us would have wanted to when we were young. Yeah, so it's all it works out. There's a few more things I definitely want to ask you about that we haven't hit yet.
Okay.
And now that we're deep into this, it's a funny time to launch in a certain direction here. But here, I'll give you one of the other random ones that I've always thought of in the back of my mind, but I never got an answer to. So Can you explain to somebody,
Oh.
if you're listening right now and you've never heard of what Sapalo calls jazz flights, can you talk about where you started to come up with the concept of the jazz flight in your mind? What it is, what it means to you? Where'd you pull that from?
Jazz
What is a
flight.
jazz flight?
Honestly, I kind of don't want to use that name anymore because I go to it's such a catchy phrase, but I don't just go to jazz shows. But what else can I call them?
Yeah, no,
right?
Take a drink of water.
Yeah.
You got to prepare for this thing. But no, okay, you could talk about it in the past tense. Then what was?
Well,
the concept of-
well, so a jazz flight. There are a couple of different inspirations for this. I don't travel very often, but Air Canada at one point had a regional carrier, Air Canada Jazz.
Yeah.
Which, from what I understand, came from, I guess, Air Canada. It was an acquisition. There was a Jazz Airlines, and then Air Canada acquired it. So the only reason I know this is because if I wanted to get out of Terrace, it would either be Air Canada Jazz or I guess we had Hawk Air and some maybe another carrier. So that's been in my head. And then the concept of a beer flight or a wine flight, a tasting flight. I had no idea. I didn't start drinking until well out of high school. So I remember I think it was at Tangent, actually. Tangent of reading the menu, like beer tasting flight, and I'm like, what is that? And then to see it come out, and you get these four small samples of beer. So that's kind of the idea of a flight. It's a flight of music. It's instead of making it an outing where it's just one show, let's just keep the music going, right? Especially well, okay, maybe I should backtrack. How did it really start? I guess Pat's Pub and Tangent. Pat's Pub and Tangent were special because they would put on shows outside of the regular, 8 p.m. slot. Most shows, I mean, there's more variation now, but most of the music I was checking out, it was always like 8 p.m.
But, and the Tangent at this time is, Sunday afternoons. There was this.
Yes.
Yeah.
They had Sunday afternoon
Pat's Pub,
shows.
Saturday afternoons.
Exactly. So I'm not really sure when it first started, where I would go to Pat's and then wander over to Frankie's afterwards. I'm sure when. I don't know if Frankie's was already around when I started, doing these flights. I'm not quite sure, but just the geography. I'm also just taking advantage of the geography of the music in Vancouver. If I open up Google Maps, I have a list of music venues, and they're all. There's a large concentration in, there's Gastown. There's a concentration in Gastown. There used to be a concentration of music venues on Commercial Drive. We've lost a lot of them, but actually, I just visited Apollo's.
I still haven't been there.
Last week. So Apollo's is what Tangent has now become. And I guess John Corsrud and Mackenzie Tran
Booking.
are making things happen over there, which is, I mean, it's great to see that happen. It's a good area. It's easy to get to, short walk from a SkyTrain station. And I remember I used to be able to go from there and then run north up the street to the Libra room, check out a couple of tunes or maybe a set, and then run back. And then just across the street was Café du Soleil. But it's very easy for me because I take transit. I can go from place to place and then go home. And it's I mean, the transit part can be a challenge. It limits my area of operation, basically, because of where I live in Richmond. It's easy for me to get into Vancouver and back out of Vancouver, but to get from Richmond to anywhere else, it takes a long time. So unfortunately, places like Brentwood Presbyterian Church, they do great programming there. But man, I've been there a few times, but then it's like, man, it's going to take me a long time to get home.
Even from here.
Yeah. Deep Cove.
Oh gosh. From here, that's the worst place of all time. Yeah.
Yes. And, we were talking about Ilhan earlier, but yeah, I was invited to some of those when they were doing jams at Honey's and doing shows too. It's a beautiful area, but man, it's once you're there, it's like you're there for a while.
Yeah.
So the other motivation for me to not just go to one show was because it takes an hour for me to get somewhere and to get back. I wanted to make it worth my while. So just, let's extend it. Instead of 2 hours travel and 2 hours of whatever the experience was, let's extend that.
Yeah.
Yes.
That makes sense. All the various factors that converge to make the Jazz Flight itinerary that you popularized in my mind.
Yeah, it's so I guess I at one point I was doing, in a very sporadic way, a gig list.
It was almost, I was going to say that if you weren't. Yeah, that it was almost like a gig list. Totally, yeah.
Yeah, and it takes, obviously, it doesn't, it seems like a simple thing, but when I'm looking at, like, man, I'm spending a lot of time on this. It's like trying to get all the names right and get all the information.
You don't say.
Yeah. So I could only do it. I usually reserved it for the weekends. Like, okay, this is the forecast. Like, and I never really wanted to, I think I made a conscious decision of, I never wanted to say, this is where I'm going, or this is where you should go. I just wanted to, this is what's on my radar. And I never really make it explicit if I'm actually gonna go, because I don't really know. Sometimes it's like literally a game time decision. If I'm going to be going from point A to point B, or if I'm going to stay at that place, or, I'm just having just such a good time, and or I bumped into somebody. Now my plans of going to venue B are out the window. I'm going to have to skip that and go to venue C, so yeah. So I mean, I can't say enough how if I didn't have the gig list, it would be a lot more difficult. It would be a lot more time consuming for me to, figure out what I want to do.
Well,
that
thank
day,
you.
Yeah.
I mean, and I got to thank you too, because the gig list is made better by you, and it has been for a long time. You're by far one of the most valuable non-presenter contributors that I've ever had to the
Thank
gig list
you.
in terms of the stuff that you notify me about that it think misses or corrections and stuff like that. You give me many misses and corrections, and those are very, very helpful, and I really appreciate it.
I'm still waiting for you to put out some T-shirts though.
T-shirts?
Yeah, because I would wear those.
Rhythm Changes t-shirts?
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I thought
mean,
about this. I thought about getting them in time for this year's Jazz Fest,
Oh,
but
yeah?
I didn't get it together. So
Well,
yeah.
because I've probably told you this many times, but I mean, when I meet new people, and they tell me, "Ooh, do you know where else I can hear
Rhythm
music?"
Changes influencer.
The very first thing I say is, "So do you know about Rhythm Changes?"
And they'll say no.
Yeah, or they do. And then the other one I mention is
This Week in Van.
yes,
This
This
who
Week
do
in
all
Van.
genres kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes, those two are my main sources, and then I supplement it with Facebook events, or scouring other social media, or the good old fashioned conversation with somebody at a show, being like, "Hey, do you have anything happening?" And
They'll tell you something you don't know otherwise.
yeah, or they'll tell me something so far into the future. I'm like, "Oh, damn, that's good to know. It's good to know."
True, yeah.
Yeah.
If it's their show, especially.
Yes.
Like, oh, I just booked this.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I dig that. Yeah, I mean, as you know, because of your high level of visibility into the gig list, like these days I'm trying to start thinking about how somebody other than me could do it, and it's been tough. And I think about what you might have to shift about what it looks like or how it works, or how it might have to evolve if somebody other than me was working on it. Because everybody who has a project like that has just kind of been their own little hobby horse, like the workings of it get so kind of just customized to your brain, and like there's things you can't explain about it. And it's it makes it so hard to transfer any of it over, to share any of the load, or to delegate anything, So this year I started thinking about that on terms of the gig list, and it's going to take a while.
It is.
But I'm starting to really think about that in a lot of different ways. And I hope that I can do something like, I'll call a shot here in case I can do it soon. Because we're past the 2-hour mark, so this is prime time for anybody. Yeah. People who are listening right now, they have influence and ideas for me, and I'm very grateful that I get to have like helpful conversations with. Right, but I mean, I hope I can do something like some kind of gig list paid internship or whatever. Like, as much as I am loath to like work directly with an educational institution, I would rather not. But if you could open it up, it doesn't even have to be a university student, but if I could solicit applications for anybody who's interested in like working on the gig list with me for 4 months, paid, hourly for a very small number of hours kind of thing. And if they get exposed to it, I gotta try something like that. Because at some point I'm going to need the help.
Yes.
And that's going to be, you're going to have to do something like that, or it's going to get too challenging and things are going to go sideways. So it's on my mind. Someday. We've already had, we've had 2.5 years of the gig list here. So it's got some history. You got a good archive there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it would be a shame to see it go.
Oh, it's not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere?
No.
Okay.
Nothing about Rhythm Changes is going anywhere. This podcast is not going anywhere. This website, the free weekly, the gig list, those pieces of the puzzle, the subscriber component, those pieces of the puzzle are pretty well established at this point. They're not like they're not just like growing like a hockey stick. They're not growing exponentially or anything, but they're pretty well established, so they're not going anywhere. What we're talking about right now, we've had a lot of conversations at gigs where like our insecurities about these kinds of things come up, and you've alluded to them. You've opened some of those doors already here, where you've talked about how you feel like you need to post more frequently, or you need to not get in anybody's way, or I have my own versions of so many of those things, where I think about is what anything that I'm up to, is it actually going to matter to anybody, or is it going to make anybody's day better? Is it going to be of value to, and then like you think about that too much and you question doing it at all, and you let it really drag you down and stuff like that. And I have a lot of things like that too. And I appreciate the chance to discuss them when it's come up, because otherwise you're just kind of sitting by yourself with those kind of feelings, right?
Yeah, you do. You kind of just sit with them, but it's so wonderful when just out of the blue someone reminds you that what you're doing is important, or that it makes a difference, or it matters. And when I hear that every once in a while, I'm like, okay, yeah, okay, I am doing something. I should I gotta stop being so down on myself. And yeah, because it started off, I basically taking photos for myself, and video. Well, it was video first, actually. Yeah, taking video first, documentation basically for myself, and then it became. I think I was struck by those moments when I would go to shows and hear such fantastic music, and musicians are on fire, but there's not that many people there. And part of it is because a lack of awareness. And that's something I realized. It took some time to realize that it's not everyone has the same ease or inclination to go digging and find out where things are happening. So when things are presented all in one space, that really ups the visibility. And it's just when people would tell me things like, I really enjoyed your post on this subject, like when Natasha passed away, actually, that was something I was actually I wasn't expecting to, because I didn't know her that well. We had only had a handful of conversations, actually. But her passing really impacted me, and I wrote about it. I wrote about, I think, our last encounter, and also how she introduced me to one of my favorite musicians, Norma Winston.
Yeah.
Such an amazing lyricist and vocalist. But yeah, and that's not something, I'm not very good with words, especially when it comes to those kinds of subjects. But I felt compelled to write something, and people told me that that really meant something to them, and I just try to carry that with me when I get down in the pits,
Yeah.
because my photography right now it's always a work in progress, just like all art is a work in progress. But right now I feel like there's this block that I can't move, and everything I'm jotting down, I have to crumple it up and toss it into the waste bin. And sometimes that gets really discouraging, and I don't really want to pick up my camera. But I have to keep going. And maybe find some different avenues, some different subjects. Because I think taking the same pictures all the time I think it's caused me to get a little bit stale. a little bit, in my opinion.
See, I think that's healthy because I think that's just like part of your creative expression is like it's pulling you forward into whatever you're going to be inspired by next, right? Like if you didn't feel that way, then you would probably be more uninspired in the long run, right? It's like a funny tension that is essential to it.
Yeah.
But it still sucks.
Yeah, it's still... yeah, but I just have to remember just remember it's a process.
Yeah.
And it's not... it doesn't all have to be rosy. Like one of the things I'm struggling with right now is editing.
Yeah.
Like taking the photo is fun. Working on them afterwards, and not that all photos need to be edited, but a lot of the times what I think I see in my mind and what I capture with my lens, when I come back and look at it, it doesn't match. So then I have to find a way to to be able to see what I saw again in that image, why I decided to press the shutter button.
Yeah. I feel that most acutely, I guess, with my playing out of all the things I've done, because I just don't play very much these days, and I just keep wanting to let it slip away and like ignore it and like, hardly play at all. And then I get the occasion to play again, and then I feel like I shouldn't be there at all because like I barely play anymore, right? And there's like 200 band leaders every month who I put on this list who all play more than I do, and like who am I to be playing anymore at this point when that's shrunk as a part of my life. But then of course every time I do it I end up having so much fun, and like I'm happy to be doing it, but I gotta get there. And like right up until the hour that I'm there, there's a lot of I don't feel very good about it, so it's weird.
Well, you've got a unique voice though, and I've got to say I hope you do that Western Red Cedars again, because I really enjoyed what I was able to hear that time at Chillax.
Thank you. I have to do it at least once more because I promised Roisin that I would do it again so that her mom could come.
That's right, she was there. Yeah.
I have a feeling, I'm curious how you react to this actually. I have a feeling that if you wrote tunes, like if you wrote compositions and you played them in this kind of instrumental context in our scene, if you were a band leader like me, I feel like you would write tunes the same way that I do.
Oh yeah.
Because all the tunes that I write are like they're very rooted in past moments in time that I don't want to let go of. And that's like the only acceptable way to carry them with me in some ways is to put them into a tune that I can always have with me, because then you can bring out that tune everywhere you go on the bandstand in life, like any gig you play, and you can transport yourself. You can pull that out to yourself, but you don't have to pull it out and put it on display to everybody else. Like you don't have to explain to everybody else why or what you are trying to hold on to with that tune or that memory, or like, but it's there for you, and you can like recontextualize it to other people. So it's like a much more healthier way for me to like hold on to some of these things.
Yeah.
If I were to just like sit by myself and think about it and be sad, or like, remember something or think about something I wish I didn't do, or something that I wished I did do, or that I wish went differently or whatever. It's like I bottle up all those wishes and I put them in tunes, and they're like each tune is tied to a different place in particular. I talked about that with Biboye, how like when I write my tunes, I'm so place motivated, like capturing a very literal place where I was at a moment in time. I just feel like you would do this too. This would be a process that you would do if you wrote music.
I mean, yeah. I also I hold on to too many things. Yeah. And yeah. What is that advice? Write things down, and so that you can contextualize them and then digest them, and then maybe they're not as big of a burden anymore.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, I have 2 albums and they both stand for very certain things that way. So, but it's good that they have them because they were made at those moments in time and then you can't get them back. And that's kind of true of everybody's albums. But I've had my own brushes with that, at least so far.
Yeah. There was I haven't written any tunes, but I have a long time ago. I put together a song, a loop based program, and it was called Metro Chill Out. Actually,
It sounds like a
Metro-
playlist.
Yeah, I know. If I wrote tunes, well, speaking of writing, though, writing is a muscle I haven't exercised. I don't exercise often enough. Like I like narratives. I like fiction, and when I was younger, I used to write furiously. Nothing totally original, though. I was firmly locked in the land of fan fiction,
Oh,
So
it's another art of that
Yeah.
internet era.
yeah. So my favorite video games or my favorite anime, or I would take characters from those worlds and put them in a different scenario. But yeah. So I because I've never been good at creating characters myself, because my problem is, well, a lot of them end up being too Mary Sue-ish, too not very interesting,
Yeah, like one-dimensional.
one-dimensional, and too perfect, too good at everything. For an original character, because I have a bad habit of inserting myself in. Well, it's hard not to, but
Yeah.
to be able to create a character separately from, and not try to inject my hopes and dreams into them, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah, but the most recent thing I wrote was a short narrative. Actually, I shared it with you. I
Yes,
think
you did.
a while ago. That was the last serious thing I really wrote.
But you delivered it to me almost as it was in the context of like it was like a narrative podcast episode in a way. That was the experience of it to me, was that you delivered it to me in audio form.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because
And there are lots of podcasts that are like that.
there are, yes.
They're not the ones I listen to really, but I know they exist. Yeah.
Someone who I shared that with told me that I should consider recording more because I have a nice voice.
You do. Yeah, and that's evident right this very moment.
Yeah, a face for radio, as they say.
I got one. I got a pitch one to no one.
Yeah, but going back to exercising that muscle, one of my biggest problems is because I don't read enough, and so I just don't have. Of course, I have my own experiences. Write what you know, but I want to be able to really be able to understand the techniques of writing. A lot of things I've forgotten, like first person or versus third person, limited, omniscient, like
The structure.
yeah, the structure, the tense of stories, and how that affects how a story is told. A lot of the books I'm reading these days, actually, I've been reading one particular author, and many of her stories are told in first person, and sometimes from multiple characters' perspectives, which is not something I'm used to. I'm very used to the classic third person, omniscient or limited, but that view from afar, and it's really interesting how just different changes in how you recount a story, it changes its emotion or its delivery, its immediacy. Yeah.
And these all have musical counterparts too.
That's
you could
right.
talk about, if you were a musician, you were talking about this. I was thinking about it, right? You could say, well, I haven't been like writing my music and being a leader or anything because I haven't, I've been listening to other genres of music or I've been doing other things, and maybe I've been an ear player or something, so I'm not too concerned about like the key and the form of the song or whatever. Like there's a whole set of the same kind of situation over in music. Yeah.
Well, speaking of ear player, I was a horrible sight reader.
Me too.
The music always seemed to go by quicker than my brain could process the notes on the staff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have a functional level of literacy or whatever. Yeah, certainly like in different eras, like being a reader is so important. Like this is the other book too, the Fraser McPherson book. Have you been exposed to the Fraser McPherson book yet?
I have not.
Oh.
I have not. That's another book I need to read. I mean, there's another book. I forget what the title is called. It was released. Oh, it's called Live at the Cellar.
Marion Jago's book about the Cellars.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I own a copy of that.
Oh, nice.
And I still haven't. I'm terrible. I'm terrible at reading books, man. It was an accomplishment for me to finish a novel in a month last year, and I'm still. And we're almost we're eight months into this year, and I think I've only finished one other book.
That's okay.
So
They're there for you.
Yeah.
I don't think that's pretty typical too. I don't think you're far behind, But yeah, the Fraser McPherson book I think you'd find really fascinating because of how much it says about Vancouver's scene in the 60s and such. There's a lot there that I think, and talk about people who sight read, right? Like that's all they ever did, really. Was playing in the house band, the music came to town with the artist. So that's a whole different era that book tells some very interesting stories about. I just finally finished it. I got my copy at the Jazz Fest. I was selling them off the table at the Vancouver Youth Jazz Orchestra thing. I was behind the merch table, and I took one for myself out of that, so I finally finished it over the course of the summer. Yeah.
I wonder if there's an ebook version of it.
I'll check up on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you said you have an e-reader.
Yeah. And I really enjoy Fraser McPherson's playing. I have one of his albums, the Live at the Planetarium. Yeah, that was actually I was there for a tribute show.
Yes, that happened a few years ago. Yeah, James Danforth.
That's right. I think maybe that's where I got the album.
That would make sense.
Maybe.
I'll lend you my copy of that book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, no, maybe you shouldn't, because books tend to get really roughed up when they're in my care. So it'll come back all dog-eared, and so that's one of the reasons why I prefer ebooks.
Okay.
Yeah, keep it pristine.
Yeah. What about, like, we haven't talked about streaming or anything like that too. Like you grew up in like the physical music era. You talked about Napster and the file sharing era and stuff, but like does the physical media kind of lens of music, does it matter to you a lot? Are you happy with streaming? Do you rage against it like many artists do? How do you feel about all that stuff?
Because I thought you were going to talk about streaming in a different sense. Because I used to stream myself.
Oh, like Twitch streaming or something like that. Yeah. No, I wasn't thinking of that.
but it was like a music radio show. It was basically I'm gonna play some tracks and I'm gonna talk about it maybe, but I'm just gonna play some songs. How do I feel about streaming? Well, I guess your generation would you consider yourself a digital native?
Yeah.
Or yeah.
For sure.
I just before that.
Yeah.
I still remember analog and cassette tapes and honestly CDs. I don't buy physical music as much anymore, but I guess long story short is I value physical media. I think it has a place. I think a lot of things get lost when it's just a bunch of zeros and ones and a file name. The way I found out about more music, or the way I interacted with music, is when I heard something I liked, I'd open up the CD case or the liner notes and who was that violinist, or I wonder where this was recorded, or just looking at the credits and seeing how there's 5 different studios in 5 different cities. It's like, how does that work? Seeing the same names pop up on different album credits, album artwork too. All of these things, which the physical, I think the physical piece, the physical item is it's a package, it's a container for all of the context surrounding the music. And when it's just a bunch of files that are downloaded, it's a lot more sterile, I would say.
Yeah.
And you can't put an autograph on a or maybe you can make it an NFT or something.
Oh boy, no, we're not going there.
But, yeah. So, music, CDs. I really value my CD collection. I never want to give it up. I don't get rid of stuff either. I have a hard time letting things go, even if I don't like it. I will still hold on to it. I mean, maybe if it's, I don't know, maybe if it's an artist who I don't want anything to do with anymore, then I would get rid of it. But yeah, I tend to hold on to things, and to be able to look back on. And I'm not sure if I'm answering your question about streaming.
I was more thinking about physical media too. I was like, how much does that matter to you? Because I mean, I know you use a streaming service and stuff. So it was like, what's the context of it for you? Yeah. So yeah, that's what I was thinking.
The current form of streaming, I resisted for a very long time. I resisted getting Spotify. I use Tidal. Yeah. I use Tidal as well now, but at the time, I think I only really knew about Spotify. I resisted it mainly because I think curation is a big part of it. Like, this is my collection of music, or my collection of whatever. And when it's out of your hands, literally now, it's different. And we're always being pushed in certain directions, being marketed, listen to this, listen to that. It's a lot more direct with streaming services now. If you let them, they can have a huge say in what you listen to. So it's easier to be less intentional about what you listen to. We were talking about how much do genres matter anymore. The playlist now is king, it seems like. The concept, albums are still happening, but how often do I say I'm going to listen to this album? That ebbs and flows most of the time, it's let's put on a playlist, and context can be lost in that way. My listening can be very mood based nowadays. Instead of what style of music I want to hear, it's like what mood am I going for? When streaming first came to the fore, back in the Winamp days, Shoutcast streaming, that was my introduction to streaming. And that was a little bit different. There's a website called Digitally Imported. It's electronic music radio station. They started as a simple one channel Shoutcast web radio station playing just trance. And now they're huge now. But that was one of the ways how I was exposed to electronic music, was through that streaming service. And through that service, then I would, find out the tracks, and then I would go on whatever the file sharing platform of the day was, and try to find it, and buy records as well. But I mean, the amount of music on my hard drives would make someone a trillionaire, basically, if I had to pay that out. And I mean, that's something I think about a lot. I mean, the doors were totally blown wide open for my ears. Ears wise, I can listen to anything I want. That was not possible up until the internet.
Yeah.
Now everything's at our fingertips, and we can listen to whatever we want, whenever we want, wherever we want. But that ease of access and that on demand, it has also, of course, devalued the music. And we can talk about how people aren't getting compensated fairly. It was a big boon for me to be able to hear anything I wanted, but there's the dark side of that, which is now it's hard to make a living. It's very difficult to make a living doing this. So actually, that kind of goes back into kind of my feeling of wanting to go hear as much music as I can and wanting to spread the word, because it's not like I can go and buy all those records. But I want to be able to, in some way, share the music with whoever wants to hear it. That's one of my greatest joys, is actually sharing music with other people. One of my favorite things to hear is someone telling me, hey, I really enjoyed that song you sent me, or that show you recommended. I check out, we had a great time, thank you. I'm like, oh, I did.
Totally.
Yeah.
That sounds like something that could be very commonplace, but it's not, right? Like that doesn't happen as often as we might all want it to. So you have to appreciate it when it does. And with the people who it does happen with, because it doesn't happen with everybody. It happens with people who you're a little bit closer with. Yeah,
that's right. And I mean, with styles of music like jazz, I mean, a lot of the styles of music that I've been into, I've always have usually been outside of the mainstream. So I've always kind of had to advocate, like, it's not that weird that I'm listening to this. It's like, you should check it out. Like, this is actually really cool. I remember in high school, I had a really tight-knit group of friends. Those were the only people I knew who listened to the same kind of music I did. But anywhere else in school, it was all, classic rock or punk or metal. That style of music was what dominated the airwaves back then. So I was the weird kid listening to electronic music.
Yeah. Now, how many years has it been that you've been in Vancouver since you came down?
It's been 16.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been 16 years. Yeah.
Does it feel like a long time?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, it's a blur, honestly. It's a blur. It feels like I've been here forever, but at the same time, it feels just like yesterday that I was living in Abbotsford. You know, I came to Abbotsford first before I moved here to Vancouver.
You came by yourself?
Yeah, I was going to, at the time, the University College of the Fraser Valley.
That's like UFV, right? University Today, yeah.
Yeah, and I only moved to Richmond so I could start a summer job. And yeah, then I never went back.
What did you study?
I was studying computer information systems.
Okay.
Because I thought, and my parents thought, well, you know, this kid's, you know, spending all of his waking hours in front of a screen.
Yeah. That sounds familiar to me.
Probably what he should be doing. So, but the farther I got into the program, the less interested I was in it. Yeah. And then I was like, yeah, I don't really want to keep going with this. And yeah, so that I've never really had a clear vision of, you know, this is what I want to do, and you know, these are the steps that I need to take to get there. It's always been very difficult for me. So yeah, I've kind of meandered.
Yeah. Can I tell you what I actually envy about that?
Yeah.
To some extent, I've never not had not just the clear idea of what I'm trying to do, but like too many of those ideas of like designs or plans or ambitions or whatever. I've never been able to shut them off or turn or like dial them down to a reasonable degree.
Oh, okay.
And the times that I actually managed to get myself to chill and not think about those kind of things, I feel so great because it's like very relaxing and stuff. Not just relaxing in like the physical sense, but like it's just like a relaxation of my spirit or whatever. And it's like I'm wound up into a lot of these things so much, and like I just don't know, I don't understand how to be more reasonable about the things that I'm pursuing a lot of the times. And so I try to, and I think Vez would listen to this and identify with you more on that front of
really?
them saying like, oh, I don't really, never really know or care too much about what I'm going to do in that kind of very narrow sense. Whereas for me, I'm like hyper focused on that. And I'm just trying to escape. It kind of rules me, and I'm like trying to escape it, you know?
Okay. So the grass is greener on the other side. Because yeah, I always envied the people in high school. It's like, yeah, I'm going to be a doctor, or I'm going to shoot for this. Yeah. And then I check in on them on social media, and well, maybe they didn't go in that direction, but yeah, to have a goal and to head towards it. Yeah, a guiding light.
I'll tell you something really funny that I discovered that I did not plan, but I looked back on one day and I realized. And I went to this tiny little elementary school in East Richmond, independent school, called Choice School. And in my last yearbook there in 2008, I wrote down what I thought I would be doing in 1 year, in 5 years, and in 10 years at that time from 2008. So my 1 year was because I was freaking out because I was going to go to New Westminster Secondary School, which was enormous. I didn't know anybody there because I didn't go to elementary school in New West. And so I was going to show up there and I wasn't going to know anybody. So my 1 year goal was like, I'm going to adjust to life in high school and I'm going to make some friends. And I actually did that because then I joined band and I made, I became friends with Madeline and Nebu and Megan Gillespie and, all those people who I'm still friends with today.
That's where
I actually did that in 1 year time. Then my 5 year goal was I want to go to music university. And then fast forward 5 years, in 2013, I'm at CAF.
Yeah.
And I only was there for that 1 year, but that was, I did make it there and I did try it out, even though I talked myself out of it along the way, but then I managed to end up going and trying it out. My 10-year goal in 2008 was that I was going to start a rock band. And I basically did that because I left the jazz scene and I went and started my band Early Spirit with Gabrielle in 2018. It was crazy. And I looked back on that yearbook one day and I was like, wow, it was not a deliberate process, but I did exactly all three of those things. But everything else that happened, I didn't try to predict and I never could have predicted.
Everything in between.
Funny how those three things lined up.
Did you ever come back to that yearbook? I think remind yourself?
Around 2020, I saw it and I realized that I had done all those things. Yeah, but I hadn't looked at it since from 2008 to 2020, and then I looked back and I was like, "Wow, that happened."
Yeah. Oh man, it was a calling.
Yeah, I mean, it's all weird. I'm just grateful to be in it, to be participating. And you and I both know as much as anybody on any given night. There's always so much there. There's such a bounty of stuff to enjoy.
Oh yeah,
there's more than we could possibly take in.
It is, and I feel guilty on the nights where I decide to just stay in. I'm like, oh, what am I doing? What am I doing? I'm making a huge mistake.
So, is tonight one of those? You shouldn't feel guilty, by the way. I do too, and Vez tells me not to, and my friends tell me not to, but I still do. So I get that when I stay in. Is tonight one of those nights, or you have a destination in mind tonight?
My plan is heading downtown tonight. There's lots of great stuff happening at Second Floor Gastown. Julia Sky, who I've heard a few times, so more in the indie pop scene. But it's so interesting. I mean, I get jazz programs for, I guess, music school in most institutions. It's either classical or jazz program. So I'm no longer surprised when I'm at what I consider a non-jazz gig and I hear jazz being played or jazz elements.
Yeah, elements for sure.
Yeah, because most of the time that was what the musician studied.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point.
So the reason I bring this up is because Julia Sky, I think the first time I heard her at Second Floor, I think like her first set of tunes, they were like mostly like what you would call standards, like in jazz anyway. Yeah, so I was like, oh, okay. And Sieski actually is another person who I really, I hear house music elements in some of her chords as well, but I really enjoy her playing as well. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. Julia Sky at Second Floor Gastown, because that's a 6 p.m. start, and then there's who's at Frankie's again?
Yep, we gotta check.
Well, the late show is Clara Lynn, I believe.
Yes, I do remember that because I checked on that.
But who is? Oh, okay. It's Nigel Mack. And
it's like a blues.
Yes,
show.
Nigel Mack and the Blues Attack.
Yeah,
that's a pretty fun band. What I'll probably do is, it's kind of up in the air. Ooh, Leslie Branton is playing, but that's kind of out of the way for me. Well, with Emilio Suarez.
like location wise?
Yeah.
Not downtown.
It's not downtown. It's actually closer to Commercial Drive.
Yeah.
So I think my plan is second floor, and then there's also Tyrant Studios, Artisher and
Nick Leffler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely going to that. So it's what happens in between that I'm up in the air, because Trees Coffee
Oh yeah.
has, I don't know her.
Is it Sadie Koshan?
Yes,
drummer?
yes.
Great.
And who's that Gilton Company? Because I feel like
I don't know if I have that on the. I don't know if it's a thing I have on the list tonight. I know last night, podcast editor Justin Gorey was playing with Last Dark Out at Gilton Co.
Last Dark Out.
Yeah.
Do you know if Jeff Gammon was on it?
Yeah.
Damn it. I should have gone.
I wasn't there either. Sorry, Justin.
I should have gone. Jeff is. I miss Jeff.
Yeah.
He's. But what's funny is he and his partner. We really hit it off at like one show, probably at Tangent. Like, and basically every time we're at the same show, it's very hard to actually pay attention to the music because we're usually talking. We're just having such a great conversation. So, yeah. But yeah, Jeff is. Oh yeah, you had him on here, right?
He was in that chair
that's
not long
right.
ago.
That's yeah, that's right. I listened to that. I listened to that podcast. Yeah, that was a really fun one. I really need to listen to Last Dark Out, because I haven't checked them out yet.
Oh, that album is fire. Yeah,
It
it's
is,
fusion, heavy fusion kind of album. Yeah.
Yeah. I would definitely enjoy it. The Tabbies are playing at Gilton Company.
Oh.
They're I think they're funky, R&B groove. But the last time I heard them play, they did a rendition of Spain.
Oh.
Yeah, I was not expecting that.
This is what you were just saying, of like the jazz elements.
That's right.
Then,
That's right.
That's a full on. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was like near the end of the beginning of the second set, because I was trying to leave to go to a different show because they were playing at second floor, and I think I was trying to go to Frankie's. So when they played Spain, I had to take a video, and I had to stick around for a little bit. Mm-hmm. But yeah, but they do play jazzy covers as well.
Yeah. It's so great, the bounty of stuff. Yeah, that's the only way I can describe it.
Yeah, it's an embarrassment of riches that we have here. Yeah, it's,
there are only a few people where I've really had the time and the time in the same place, where I feel like you are like you're on a never-ending journey with me, and it's like no matter what show I go to, there's a chance that I'm gonna see you, and like you don't even have to plan. And I've had those feelings all the way back since the early Tangent days, where I first got my first brush of feeling like I could go down there and I wouldn't have to plan anything, and all my friends would be there.
Yeah,
there's only a few people where I feel that way right now, where I feel like I'm part of something, and we're both so deep in it, and we're just trying to get the most out of it as possible. And I feel like we're going to be in it for a while. And you've become one of those people in this Rhythm Changes era. And I always look forward to seeing you out there. And it's a part of my experience in the scene. It's a big part of it. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And you're a big part of mine as well, obviously. And it's always great bumping into you. It's great bumping into like Vince too.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of people like that, Vincent Lim, another photographer in town, and another huge live music listener. He was one of the first people I started noticing, seeing this guy at every show I would go to. I'm like, who is this guy? What's his deal? Yeah. And yeah, so I do feel like I'm a part of this this scene, I suppose. It took me a long time to really accept that, because I see myself as standing on the sidelines and watching it happen. But yeah, being part of the fabric of the community I'm happy to be part of it. Yeah.
I'm not alone. We are happy that you're part of it.
Thanks.
Yeah. No matter where anybody is on any given night, that's overriding truth. This was a special one. I wouldn't have asked for anything different for episode 100 than this. So
yeah.
Thank you, my friend. That was so much fun.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Hopefully another 100 episodes and more and beyond. Yeah. This was really fun.
Indeed. Amen to that. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Rhythm Changes podcast. If you enjoyed it, become a member for free today at rhythmchanges.ca. Get the free weekly email. This episode was made solo by me. Mr. Justin Gorey is on a bit of a summer break for this special one, and I will catch you next time on this feed for a special announcement about the future of this podcast, which has changed my life, is not going anywhere, and is only going to get better. So thank you so much for being along for the ride. Sending love.